Thank you, everybody who's coming through. Lovely to virtually see you. My name is Penny Eccles. I'm CEO and founder of Marketing Partnership. And generally, we help universities to attract more of the right students for them. Um, but what we've noticed is when we do workshops with clients, this topic comes up time and time again. And I just thought this would make for a really interesting webinar. Um, they often talk about, so we know that higher education is an intangible purchase, can I say? You go to higher education not really knowing what to expect. So as marketers, it's our job to make that more tangible, to make it more real and more graspable. And the best way we can do that is by showcasing the genuine student experience. And of course, the best way of doing that is to leverage the support of our students' union. But what I find is either the relationships between the marketing teams and students' unions are good, but could be great, or that it's an all-out battle. So I thought this would be a really good time to talk about this because, of course, a good relationship means we have great clubs and societies content for CRM communications, and that we can showcase that great student experience at open days. So I'm delighted to welcome our special guests today. So first of all, we've got Faye Harris, who's Deputy CEO of Membership Services at Keele University Students' Union. She's operational and strategic lead for the development of Keele SU and the management of membership services, which is the student voice, advice and support, volunteering, crucial clubs and societies. So I think you're going to add a lot to this conversation. Thanks for coming, Faye.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks ever so much for inviting me, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with the participants that are here today.
Brilliant. And Ian. So Ian is director and co-founder of the Crowd Agency with over 20 years experience working in higher education and the student and youth sector. So Crowd is based in Gloucestershire, Ian.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and you're that link, aren't you, between brands, charities, and students? So creating effective marketing campaigns aimed at the student market, and you manage activity for brands such as, got the list: Odeon, Starbucks, The Times, Art Fund, PwC. The list goes on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks again for the invite to join this morning. I was formerly in the student union space, so I've got a kind of really kind of fortunate position of seeing it from sort of both sides of the equation. So happy to join everyone this morning. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. So former CEO with the Students' Union, and also previously worked as head of partnerships at UCAS. So lots of relevant experience. So let's crack on then. So I thought we'd start just with a gentle introduction to what is a Students' Union, because there might be marketers here who are new to this and actually don't know what a students' union is, what it's responsible for, and how it's funded. So, Faye, can you shed any light on that at all?
Give it a go. You've got student unions are funded in different ways, but essentially, most student unions will rely on a grant from their institution in some form or other. At Keele, we get a grant from the university, but we also have commercial services that support our income streams as well. So in addition to the membership services that you listed, we've also got bars, catering, and a venue to supplement the income. And also, slightly unusually, we've got a co-op franchise, so we run the supermarket on campus as well.
Okay.
So we've got income streams that come from commercial activities, and we also got a print shop, which is some student unions. A lot of student unions had them in the past. We've still got one. I think that's probably unusual these days.
Okay.
So those commercial activities will supplement the grant that we get from the university to run the services that I would say it's about the student experience and sort of co-curricular activities that we step in and support with. And then it's sort of obviously then working with the students to give them a voice about their student experience in terms of the academic side as well.
Yeah. And so you have SABs as well, don't you? That kind of they're new every year, is that right?
Yeah, so we've got a trustee board that's made up of um, annually elected full-time officers who are all trustees. And then we've got student trustees and lay trustees on our board. And yes, we have officers. So you find that a lot of student unions at this time of year are looking a bit stressed because we're all running elections.
Mm.
And you galvanise the student body to elect their representatives. So students can either take time out of their studies or time at the end of their studies to come and work with us full time for a salary, but they are trustees of the organisation and they're there to feed into the organisation that student voice and represent students. And they sit on university committees and as well as our board to again feed into that student experience, both academically but also work with us in terms of the student experience as well.
Okay, great. So Ian, to you, so why do you think there is this potential mismatch between students' unions and their marketing teams?
Yeah.
Can you shed some light?
$1 million question, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I think we've talked about, we've got half an hour here. We could probably talk for 4 or 5 hours about the complexity around this. And as Faye just alluded to, the nature of that relationship between student unions and the universities is at the heart of it at times quite complex. The student unions only exist because the university is there, albeit there's an education act there. And I think some of the complexity sometimes that I found when I was running a student union is there's occasionally competing priorities, even though at the heart of what you want to be doing, and most organisations see that student experience is at the centre of that. There are times where the student union is, the voice of students and maybe challenging the university. So you've often got this kind of conflict sometimes where the student union and the university are working together, and then at other times maybe it can be a bit combative. So my experience when I was working within student unions was just, I guess, a bit of a need to understand what each other's pain points are on each side. Just as a really, really simple one, often the open days are on a Saturday. And I would have the team working all week on elections, on providing advice, on running services. And then on the Saturday morning, we're asking them to come in and present, everything that the union does. And that's on a morning where you're asking them to give up their own time. Resource is quite tight for most student unions. There are some that are better funded than others, but most of them are, trying to make the best of what they can with the budgets that they've got. And then you've got elected officers in there as well who may have their own different motivations and may not necessarily be as bought into the marketing conversation as they are maybe campaigning and other things that they've stood on a mandate for. So there's just so many things going on in here, and I think each institution will be slightly different and have its own set of challenges. And key to the middle of that is what you said, Penny, of the marketing teams and student unions just being closer together and talking more about what those shared goals are, I think.
Yeah, but Faye, you said there's this block grant, and I'm assuming that's based on the number of students within the university. So this might be a naive question, but more students might equal more money, and therefore, if there was more support to help get more students, students' union would ultimately benefit. Is that right?
I think to separate the two, I think ultimately more students for the organisation has got to be a good thing, and so then there's a mutual benefit from that.
Mm.
Again, it depends on different arrangements with different universities about whether it's linked to per head
Right.
or it's just a fixed amount of money. It will depend on local arrangements.
Mm. So why do you think there's a mismatch? What do you think might be going on there?
So I think to echo what Ian was saying, I think that some of the challenges that we have is that managing expectations. I think that during the week today we've got a market on outside. It's varsity happening today, so our sports teams are competing with staff sports teams. Yesterday we had a vintage fair in. So there's a lot of activity. Jake Bug was a sellout last week here. There's a lot of activity happening. Sorry, I've got there's a lot of activity happening throughout the week, and in the evenings, a lot of society activity. So we've got 150 different societies here and 35 sports clubs. Trying to recreate that on a weekend and make the place look vibrant is a real challenge. And managing expectations around that. So I had a lecturer quiz us about our sort of open day offer, citing, I think they wanted a sort of flash mob Beyonce style to kind of showcase all the amazing things that we do on a Saturday morning, but trying to recreate that vibrancy on a wet Saturday in November is really hard, and trying to galvanise society members to say, come and show all the prospective students all the fun stuff that you do, and they're like, well, we're away doing fun stuff. So rowing club are on the lake, they're out rowing, they don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So that is a challenge. And as Ian said again, we've just come out of elections. I was at snow sports last night till 8 o'clock. I'm at rugby tonight till 9:30, and then we've got an open day on Saturday.
Yeah.
So there's some challenges there.
Yeah, I think you said last time we spoke, you said it's kind of, people expect the glitter and the unicorns, don't they? Like some sort of elaborate flash mob to just appear on a Saturday, and it's not as simple as that.
It's not as easy to switch that on. And again, we do what we can. So our ballroom was absolutely jam-packed with students in there. It was a sellout. Jake Bugg was sold out weeks before he came and played. And then again, the ballroom on Saturday morning, it's been cleaned, but slight aroma from the night before. How do you kind of say, oh, well, Oasis played here. They're not here now, but they did play here.
Yeah.
So we've got a big screen on there. We put a video on there, and we try and portray what happens in the ballroom. But again, it's beyond the sort of red carpet, glitter unicorns and trumpets.
Yeah.
What can you do to recreate that vibrancy and try and sell that to prospective students and student parents and carers, where they might not have had a university experience before, to compare it with?
There's a real irony there. Sorry to jump in, of actually where. So there's few key things that Faye's mentioned, which is, it's undeniable that the student union is a great marketing tool for institutions, and if you're not leveraging that to its fullest, then you're missing a key trick. But set against an irony of, often the things that showcase the university and the student union in its best light are things like varsity and elections and freshers, which are not when open days for good reason are happening. So to Faye's point of how you replicate all those great kind of vibrant things that are going on campus on a wet Saturday morning in November when the place is sort of half shut is probably a bit of a challenge for everybody.
Do you think that there's trust? Do you think there's maybe a trust issue sometimes?
Well, Faye said something really interesting then about the sort of slight cleanup after the gig. I always advocated for, when I was running the student union, of show the reality of what that is, and I used to sort of reference it as sometimes feeling like the marketing team were coming to us before an open day, and it was like preparing for the Queen to come. Like, can we have a tidy up? Can we just clean here? And I would sometimes get asked to remove like the newspaper if maybe there was a front page story which was maybe a campaigning one or what have you. So there is a need for trust, because I get it from the university marketing department's perspective, if they want to show the best side of the institution. But I do think there's something about authenticity and feeling like you're arriving on the site and getting a real proper sense of what it feels like to be on campus.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, I think student unions often might not be comfortable that what they run is a marketing tool, because at the heart of it is actually you want to deliver great services for students. But it's all of the data that we've got around why students choose the institutions that they go to. It's all around what opportunities there are on campus. Clearly, do they do the course that I want to do? But new experiences, sports and societies, what facilities are on site, and often they are delivered by the student union. So they're so key. And I think it's been a long time since I've been working in the student union space, but I think it's still the same problems now that I was seeing 15 years ago about just those two parties needing to be closer together and the shared goal out of it.
So just to warn you both, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to be asking you what your three things are for a recipe of success.
Cool.
And then for everybody's watching, there is a chance to ask questions. So if you've got any burning questions, please put them in the chat and we will definitely ask those. So I've been thinking, Ian, about this, especially what you do, and you work with freshers fairs and marketing teams run open days. It doesn't take a genius to work out that they are too big, high profile, high investment, but high return events for universities. And yet the two areas rarely collaborate on those big events. Do you think there's anything there? What could be learned? Could either party learn something from each other? Could there be cost savings, for example?
Oh my goodness, there's so many ways that the two parties could be working closer together. And I also think, hopefully answering your question, Penny, that there's a lot that can be sort of borrowed from, so we work a lot with brands and how they engage with students on campus. Potentially the university and to some degree student unions could be learning from some of how that works. So on an open day is a real simple, quick win. Why not showcase all of the great things that a student union offers, albeit there's the challenge if you've got to get people in on a Saturday morning. But you could have a little stand for your advice team, for the jobs shop, for the bars, etc., and really showcase those things. Such simple little mechanics that you can adopt as well. We obviously kind of help you guys with the Batak wall on your lawn. Everyone loves just a minute.
That's one of those things.
And
if anybody doesn't know what it is,
and this, I suppose my message is, it doesn't have to be overly complicated, but it's just something to kind of engage. And I do think student unions are often better, can be better at this than the uni sometimes. So, stealing the best bits from each other is got to be kind of worth some time, kind of each institution looking at. And just, I think, making more of the day and really kind of elevating it. I don't think it would take a huge amount of thought from both parties to kind of just move it on a notch.
Faye, you when we spoke last, you talked about bringing in vibrancy and the techniques you use to do that.
Yeah, so we've looked at what we can do. So one of the things that I did was when post-COVID, post the death of the high street, rise of internet shopping, I spoke to our students about what their needs and wants were in terms of retail opportunities, and the feedback they gave to me about the campus experience was they want pop-ups, they want locally made items, and they want to have that interaction, they want that social interaction with sellers. So we've switched on we sell items from local makers, and part of the package that we offer is they have an opportunity to sell in our shop. They can come and have a stall on campus, but they can also come to open days as well. And we have student makers that we sell on behalf of, and they come along to the open days as well. So these earrings that I'm wearing at the moment, these are made by a student maker who sells in our shop.
Nice.
So it's again that vibrancy, but you're not selling something that doesn't normally happen. Those items are off sale during the week, and they're here on a pop-up basis, and they're on open days. So you're not falsely selling something that isn't there when they're here as students. So I think that we also do ask student groups and encourage student groups, and some of that rises and falls with interest. So we do ask student groups to come along, and even if they can't do the glitter and unicorns and they can't do the flash mob, what can they do? So can they just have a stall and come and talk to people about what it is that they do?
Yeah. And payment, would a bit of payment help?
Yeah, obviously, because again, we're competing with students who've got part-time jobs, and also with societies that are always desperate for funds. So I think that that opportunity to work with student unions and an opportunity to recognise the challenges that they've have on the cost front.
Yeah,
it's just, I think that would be really important to a student union when as Ian said, you know, your day-to-day activities, trying to replicate that on a weekend, it has resource implications. So it's understanding what they are and trying to work together to see if there's opportunities for payment and also for paying students to be there. And I think payments for students as ambassadors, you know, that student-to-student information sharing is really, really important.
Yeah, I guess it's for the marketing team, really, isn't it, to calculate what the potential return is from that.
Yeah.
Marketing budgets can be quite significant and often can be spent on media, but perhaps demonstrating that student experience in real life is worth the investment. It's worth channeling some of that money over. So okay then, so if we were to write a recipe book to how to really engage your students' union and to really develop a strong relationship, maybe start with you, Ian. What would be your top 3 tips, perhaps?
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit, but at the heart of it is working collaboratively and accepting that there is a sort of shared goal there of wanting the best students in that fit that institution and working together on that. So sort of creating the win-win, I guess, because I think often student unions might feel asked to contribute, but not in partnership. So I think building that on a place of trust rather than it just being every couple of months, there's a, can you turn up on Saturday? It's built into what's being done. The resource issue, sorry to kind of point at it with the pound signs, but I think that is in there, and it is about return on investment. For me, the services that student unions have are just so vital. You know, put in some budget that way to showcase that is as useful a spend as into your paid media or whatever, I would argue. So I think maybe a bit of a rebalancing on that front. And then I just posed this question when we briefly chatted beforehand about how many, so it's election time at the moment for student unions. The newly elected officers will be going through induction, and as part of that induction, they'll meet all the union staff. They'll undoubtedly meet the VC, registrar, etc. Do they, as standard, meet with the marketing team as part of the induction? So you go right from the off that the sabbatical officers are bought into what is happening. I think if that's not happening, that's a nice quick win, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I used to think as a marketing director at a university, my most important role was inducting new staff into the university because I wanted them to know right from the start what our brand values were, what we stood for, you know, the types of things to talk about at open days. Did I do that with the Students' Union? Probably not. So yeah, I think that's a great tip. And Faye, your top 3.
I think understanding where each other's coming from. I think that piece about understanding what the challenges the student union is facing, but also, you know, working together to understand what the institution's challenges are. So, you know, even if it's just down to the sort of compliance with the CMI regulations around marketing and what you can say and what you can't say, it's understanding what each other's challenges are and working collaboratively so that you can break down some of those barriers together. I think that symbiotic relationship is really, really important. I think also understanding that visitors aren't a homogenous group. I think that we produce different sets of information for prospective students, but also for parents and carers as well, and for international students. Just bear in mind that what the information that they need can differ. So we're kind of mindful that on the day, got different groups to talk to parents and carers, but also to prospective students. But I think that collaborative work and understanding each other people's challenges, but as Ian said, just understanding what the financial challenges and the demands are, because one of the things that we didn't mention about funding of student unions is that student unions are charities. And so, you know, there's those the implications that come with that as well, but also the funding challenges at the moment are you know, the rising minimum wage, cost of living, the freeze on maintenance support for students. It's all having an impact on charities in the charity and third sector, and student unions are not immune from that.
Yeah, great. And so if I can summarize then the stuff that you've already spoken about. So you've talked a lot about the core elements of a relationship, haven't you? Trust, understand each other, set out your why. As marketers, we're supposed to be brilliant at this. Why don't we set out the why to Students' Union so we start that relationship, understanding each other, as you said, Faye. I think linked to that, and I think you did mention this before, Ian, work with each other throughout the year. Does it have to be, at key times when you just need each other? Because that's not the marker of a proper relationship, is it? And I think when I was talking to Amy, who will be joining us as a bit, she was a sabbatical officer, and she mentioned how when she was running and trying to attract those votes, she would have appreciated some marketing support. Where was the university marketing team there, as part of this long-lasting relationship? Ian, you said kind of embrace the activism. That's what Students' Union are there for. I'm very guilty of trying to cleanse the campus before an open day, and I have to admit, sometimes when I visit client universities, often happens in the toilets. I'll look on the back of the toilet door, and it'll say something like, "Are you being coerced?" Or are you, join our FAF, the Financial Assistance Fund? And I just think, it sounds like a FAF immediately. And I just think, oh no, this is giving the wrong impression to visitors. But maybe if there was a relationship there and a co-understanding, these things might, be smoothed out without obliterating the activism. The sabbatical officers are really key, and that induction piece is crucial. And offer some funding. I think, if there isn't some budget there, could a small portion of budget be allocated to the Students' Union with some objectives and some outcomes? I'm sure that would be all right, wouldn't it? But that's how you develop a strong, trusting relationship, and don't expect the glitter and the unicorns because glitter and unicorns can't just appear. Do you think I've got everything?
I think so. There's just a tiny point I was going to make, Penny, which I should have mentioned before. The sabbatical officers are just amazing. I've had the fortune of working with some amazing sabbatical teams, and that is at the heart of, you get that fresh impetus every year. But it is really key in that relationship bit that there's the full-time staff connection as well. I did have some years of SABs where they maybe just didn't quite see as much of an importance on showing up to the open day and talking, because maybe their agenda was around getting more people. They wanted to be out. So as a staff member, SABs will do what they feel is important to them, but as a staff member, you do have to sort of remind them that this is good for us as well. So it might be preempting some of the questions, but that staff sabbatical relationship is really key as well, I think.
Perfect. And also you're the consistent person as well, aren't you? So that relationship with the chief exec, deputy chief exec are absolutely crucial. Okay, whilst hopefully we're going to get inundated with questions, I'm just going to do a quick promo for our next webinar. This is it, how to attract more of the right students to your course. So a lot of our work is we do a PACE program where we talk about looking at the proposition and how we attract students and how we convert them. But the final E is really crucial. That's working with your enablers. And Students' Union is one of your enablers, but also academic colleagues. Academic colleagues could be really crucial in helping to attract more students, but we don't always give them the right tools, and we don't support them in maybe the way we could do. We don't help them to prioritize which courses to look at. So if you do have an academic colleague who is a potential champion for student recruitment and is really warm to the idea of marketing and student recruitment, please ask them to come to this webinar. We've developed a particular specialism for working with academic colleagues. We're often that bridge between marketers and academics. So please do encourage your academic colleagues to attend. I'm sure it's going to be a great webinar with lots of questions. So yeah, please do sign up for that. And there's the booking link there on there.
Okay, we've had a couple of questions in. building on some of the topics we've talked about. So we mentioned it's difficult to recreate the buzz at weekends. So what would your solution be to make open days work for student unions? Any further tips there?
I can talk about what we do, if that would help. So we have gazebos outside the building, and we have staff there to talk to students. We've got music that plays, and we've got giveaways, we've got freebies that we give out. We've got that tailored set of information, say, talking to different audiences. So it's tailored information to give away to different groups of visitors. We do tours of the building, and again, utilising the assets that you've got. So we've got a big screen in the ballroom. So we've got a video that goes on in the ballroom that talks through not only what the venue does, but talks about the student union. So it's trying to make an empty space a bit more vibrant and trying to recreate something that's not there in the week. And we do have officers, full-time staff and students there to answer questions. And again, you've got a variety of different people to talk to different visitors. And we're just conscious that parents and carers might want to know the answers to certain questions, and prospective students might want to know something different. So we've got different people to talk to different audiences. And I think it's about understanding also about the journey that those visitors have been on. I've got children in higher education, and I spent a lot of my year last year going to a number of different open days and had different experiences. And I think, again, as a parent, we're a lot more invested in the experience now. And I didn't feel that as a parent, my needs were looked after and my role in the higher education journey was reflected. And again, as we say, partners that we work with to create that vibrancy. So we've got the sellers and makers, and we've also got student groups that when they can, they'll be there to represent what they're actually doing.
Thank you.
Anything to add, Ian?
Yeah, I think I'm going to sound like a bit of a broken record possibly, but I think if you've got that basis of trust at the start of the year and you've got a plan in place, so all of your open days are already planned in, you can kind of get ahead of this stuff a little bit quicker in terms of, right, how can the student union build its program of events in for the year that it lines up. The resource bit, sorry to labour the part, because we used to have debates about, can we get our facilities open, because it's going to cost us X amount to staff it and what have you. So I think universities could help unions take the money bit off the table so that, you know, it's open. It is difficult. Obviously, every site is slightly different. We were in a fortunate position at the uni I was in that the student union was right in the middle of the campus. It is more difficult if your union is maybe slightly away and working out how you build that into the tours and what have you. So there's slightly rambling and going off topic a little bit, but I think if it's all planned into sort of an approach for the year, I think it just gives you much more kind of scope to be able to do something a bit more exciting and build a Batak wall in.
and again, is having that good relationship with your marketing team. We're really got the really pleased to have a really strong relationship with the university's marketing team and their support, and we're very grateful for that, and it works really well.
Any more questions, Amy?
One more question so far, so feel free to send in some more for anyone that's on the call. What are the best ways to incentivize student groups to support an open day? So perhaps thinking here about if you haven't got that relationship that you might want with your sabbatical officers, for example, are there other routes into the student society or sport group networks?
Yeah, so we in the past we've offered money in student societies accounts. So if they attend the open day, then they get money to it's not a salary, it's not they're being paid, but it goes into the society account. So they can then spend that on society activity, and then it becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's one option. But I think also that I think some of it starts with what Ian was saying about at the very beginning, having that really good relationship and staff and students understanding the value. I was talking to one student that that had an option of going to 2 different universities, and on their open day, it was the conversation that they had with somebody, a student representative on that day about their experience, and that sold it. So it's the value and what people get on those open days. What is it? What does success look like, and what are you all aiming for?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is back to your point, Penny, of what is everyone's why. And my experience with the sports teams and societies that I had the fortune to sort of be involved in, that they don't need much of an excuse to come and talk about and showcase what they're doing. They're really passionate about what they do, particularly some of this, how I might describe, slightly more obscure society. Obscure is probably the wrong terminology. The less mainstream sort of sports, and maybe they're really keen to kind of talk about. Like we had an amazing kendo team at the uni I was in, and it's like right, they wanted to come and talk about it. So again, I think if it's feeling partnered and you're talking to the society chairs and sports teams, they will come along if you're making them known that they're wanted and that we want them involved in it. And often they can just line their training up on that morning if they haven't got fixtures. So it just all comes back to having those conversations early, I think, over labouring that point too much.
And although this might be a webinar in itself, I read some time ago that when alumni want to give back to their university, they often don't want to give back to the university, but what they really do want to give back to is their old rowing society or their own kendo society.
Yeah.
Do you think that's being leveraged enough yet?
I'm not as close to it as I was, but my sense was when we were involved in sort of fundraising and on the phones and the kind of fundraising that alumni do, it maybe doesn't leverage that enough, because you're absolutely right. If I back to when I was a student, you're affiliated with the things you're involved in, and that's the emotive stuff, that's the friendships that you've created and what have you, and that's really quite powerful stuff. It's not that the university isn't important to them, but they're clearly in the part of that institution that is really important to them. So possibly more could be done there.
Yeah. Can I just add to that Key Fund is the fund that distributes the money that's raised from alumni, and that process just closed, and a significant amount of our student groups benefited from grants from them. And I've just won a grant for a sort of sense of belonging piece for open days and for welcome events. So that's about understanding where you sit in the local community and understanding what the local community is made up of, and so that the students feel less of a tourist, but they feel much more a part of that community. So that's a project that I'm working on. I'll start working on now. I've got that funding from the alumni.
Another question. Yeah, so I'm just thinking about the funding, the resource issues. I think we can all agree that we want the student unions to be involved and present at events, but the resource is obviously a huge challenge. And I'm sure there are people on the call who are from recruitment or marketing teams who are organising those open days and thinking, yeah, absolutely, we should be investing resource there so that they can be open and present. But my open day budget has shrunk this year, or where will that money come from? Is there a case for working on a proposal together between the student union and the marketing team to get an add-on perhaps to that block grant, for coming up with this is what we could do if we work together, if there was more investment, and the investment's going to go as an add-on, it's not going to be part of the already distributed funds. But if we had this sort of top up money that was invested on in the student union, kind of being able to be there for open events, this is what we could put on. You'd obviously need, I guess, to work with this predominantly with the staff team, Faye, because your sabbatical officers are potentially changing over every year, and that bid could take a while to kind of get off the ground and get through the various committees and sign off it with needs. But is that an option for universities to explore?
I think it very much is, and I think that's just going back to all the things that we've been discussing about understanding the pressures that just opening the building on the weekend cost you money, and then those resources about what you're putting into it. But also I think that is it something that you're going to invest in that all students can benefit from all year round? So if it's a gazebo, then student groups can borrow that for that gazebo during the rest of the year when it's not being used for open days. So, it's having to think about that offer looks like, but also going back to that symbiotic relationship and saying, well, actually, we all gain from a really good open day experience. Part of the work that we do in Freshers and Welcome Week is to tell students about what a student union is. Well, if you can tell them on open days, you're kind of halfway there as well. So there's benefits from both sides. But I think that there's definitely a key takeaway from this is can people have a think about, if there's ring fence funding for open days or if it's part of the block grant, how can that benefit both the student union and the university to get to what you're both aiming for, and what does success look like? And again, I think our relationship with our marketing team is a really good one, because we've been able to invest in things like gazebos and investing in that open day experience, where we wouldn't have been able to without that partnership working relationship.
Yeah, great. And I think just last question, which I might answer, which is, could we differentiate SU activity at open versus applicant days? I've got a view on this. So if you are finding it difficult to, spread your resources so thinly, I would suggest that you use your SU to showcase at applicant days. That's the post-offer event, because that's when you bring out the big guns. That's when you really kind of show your exclusive access. This is what being here is really going to be like. These are the people you will meet. This is how you will feel when you're in the Taylor Swift Society. I think this is the time when you really do work closely with your SU, especially if budgets are tight and you need to prioritize and be strategic about where to focus. I think that's probably the place to start. And I think that's probably a good place to stop. Thank you both. Absolutely fascinating. Probably 6 more webinars in that. And of course, if anybody is interested in the Enable part of our PACE program, we've done work with accommodation services, student money, student support, of course, academic colleagues, just to try and make sure that service is really showcased in the way that it can, to show your university in its best, strongest, most vibrant light. I think sometimes you do think that's a battle that I just can't face, but it might be worth working out how much that battle might be worth to you and to your university. And even if there is no battle, even if it's just going from a good relationship to a great relationship, it's probably worth that facilitated time, I think. Thank you again, Ian and Faye and Amy, and hopefully we'll see you again on the 24th of April for the webinar specifically for academic colleagues. Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.